Welcome to the deep dive. You've brought your sources, and we're here to really get under the skin of something fascinating.
And today, that's Jordan Peele's 2017 film, Get Out.
Exactly. A really key film, especially, I think, for anyone studying, American film since 2005.
Oh, absolutely. It's perfect for looking at, well, key elements of film form, obviously, but also meaning and response aesthetics, representation, and all the context surrounding it.
Yeah, we're going to try and unpack how Peele uses, like, everything from cinematography to mise-en-scène to tell this pretty complex story.
And what it all means, how it makes you feel, and sort of where it fits in the bigger picture, American society, culture, politics around that time.
And we can't forget, this wasn't just some indie flick. It was huge. Critically acclaimed, Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, and a massive box office success.
Right. So our mission here really is to break down how Peele uses all those cinematic tools and this narrative structure to explore really difficult issues. Race, liberalism in America.
Stuff that was maybe being talked about in a different way before this film. Gives you a shortcut, maybe, to understanding why Get Out landed the way it did.
Definitely. So where do we start? The visuals.
Yeah, let's dive into the cinematography.
Yeah.
One thing the sources highlighted was the use of medium shots, especially when Chris is in those white spaces, like the Armitage house, the garden party.
Uh-huh. And what's interesting there is how those shots work. They don't just, show him there. They sort of amplify his anxiety, his feeling of being isolated.
How so?
Well, by keeping that distance, that medium framing, we see him within the environment, constantly surrounded by white faces. It makes his outsider status, his discomfort, really palpable.
You feel him being watched.
Exactly. It's a visual way of signaling that something's off, something's wrong. Even before, things really escalate, it builds that unease.
And the camera itself, Chris's camera, that seems important too. He's a photographer.
Oh, yeah. Hugely symbolic. His photography, it represents his perspective, maybe his autonomy, his way of seeing the world.
So when he looks through the lens at the party guests,
Right. It's like the act of framing them, objectifying them for a change. It reveals something sinister under the surface. Like his art cuts through their polite facade.
and then later, the flash becomes crucial, doesn't it?
It does. The camera flash is what triggers that moment of realization of liberation almost for Andre Logan. So the tool of Chris's own perspective, his way of seeing, literally helps someone else see the truth.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Okay, what about mise-en-scène, the objects in the frame? The film seems packed with them.
It really is. Take the teacup. Missy's teacup and spoon she uses for the hypnosis.
Yeah, seems like just, a nice teacup, maybe a bit formal. Represents civility.
On the surface, yes. But think about the history of tea, its connection to colonialism, exploitation, even violence. Suddenly, that delicate object used for control, it carries this whole hidden weight.
Ah, like the Armitages themselves.
Mm.
Civilized surface, horrific underneath.
Exactly. It mirrors that perfectly. And then there's the deer.
The deer he hits with the car early on.
Yeah. Initially, it's a symbol of, well, victimhood, right? Something hunted, vulnerable. Something the Armitages, particularly the father, seem to despise.
But Chris feels sympathy for it.
He does. And then, crucially, later on, he uses the mounted deer head, the antlers, as a weapon.
Right. He turns it back on them.
He reappropriates that symbol of victimhood and makes it a tool for his own survival. It's a really powerful visual turn.
Okay, let's shift to editing. The film uses dramatic irony so effectively. We, the audience, often sense the danger way before Chris does.
Yeah, and the editing is key to that. It often cuts away just before Chris fully processes something, or it shows us glances and reactions that he might miss.
Giving us those little hints.
Little glimpses of the horror underneath that keeps us on edge, feeling anxious for him, even when he's trying to play it cool during those awkward moments.
And the reverse shot during the party with all the microaggressions.
Oh, yeah. That's brilliant. You get the comment casual, racist, maybe unaware, maybe not, and then bam, cuts straight to Chris's face.
You see that flicker of hurt or confusion or just weariness that he has to instantly suppress.
Exactly. That back and forth really highlights the immediate impact of those comments, the emotional labor he's doing constantly. Plus, you get those quick cuts to Rose looking supportive, but actually.
Yeah, reveals later she's totally in on it.
Yeah,
Those cuts build suspense.
definitely. And the sound design, how does that contribute?
Well, the dialogue itself, right from the start, the Armitage's welcome feels off.
A little too eager, too performed.
Yeah, like they're trying too hard. It sounds strained. hinting that it's not genuine. You hear the awkwardness,
And then at the garden party, the dialogue is just loaded. All those
the
comments.
microaggressions about his build, black is in fashion, clowning his eyes. Ugh.
At first, they seem maybe just ignorant, awkward party talk, but then,
They become horrifyingly literal later on. You realize they meant exactly what they said.
yeah, the script is incredibly clever in foreshadowing like that. And the music choice at the start. Childish Gambino's Redbone with the lyric, "Stay woke."
That's huge.
Yeah.
It immediately flags the film's connection to, Black Lives Matter, racial awareness.
But it's also a literal warning to Chris, isn't it? Stay alert, stay awake to the danger. It works on both levels.
Absolutely. And Daniel Kaluuya's performance is central to making us feel all this.
Oh, completely. He's doing so much. It's like a double performance, really.
What do you mean?
Well, there's the internal experience, the growing fear, the isolation, the horror, which you see in his eyes, his subtle reactions.
Right.
But then there's the external performance, the code switching, the way he adjusts his behavior, suppresses his feelings to navigate this white space and seem non-threatening.
He has to constantly manage their perceptions of him.
Exactly. It's an incredible balancing act, and he makes you feel every moment of that tension. You're right there with him.
Which brings us to representation. It's still pretty unusual even now to have a mainstream American horror film where the villains are, well, affluent white liberals.
It really is. And Peele was very intentional about that. He specifically wanted to avoid the whole white savior trope.
Where a white character helps the black protagonist.
Yeah. Here, the people who present themselves as allies, as enlightened, are the actual source of the terror.
They're not the KKK caricature villains.
No, they're the type Peele said he'd meet at liberal parties. People who might say, I would have voted for Obama a third time, but still harbor these insidious, dehumanizing attitudes.
It really exposes how seemingly harmless comments, that sort of liberal, self-congratulatory, I'm not racist attitude, can mask something much darker.
It shows how those comments can be patronizing, how they reduce people to stereotypes even without overt malice. It's a critique of a specific kind of racism.
Aesthetically, the film blends styles, doesn't it? It feels very realistic, almost naturalistic in places.
But then layered with all this heavy symbolism we've been talking about.
Yeah, that contrast is really effective. The realism makes the horror feel grounded, like it could happen.
And the symbolism lifts it, gives it those deeper layers of commentary, like the opening shots of Chris's photography. It establishes his eye, his perspective right away.
And the Armitage house itself. The look of it.
Feels like a plantation, doesn't it? The architecture, the black servants, Georgina and Walter. It deliberately evokes that history.
Creates this really unsettling echo of the past and the present.
And then the bingo game.
Oh, God, yeah. That's just chillingly blatant.
It's a slave auction, repackaged as a genteel party game. The dehumanization is right there on the surface. It forces you to confront that legacy.
So thinking about the context the film emerged from, socially, you mentioned Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, the film came out when those conversations about racial injustice, police brutality were really gaining momentum. Stay woke was becoming a mainstream phrase, a call for awareness.
And the film taps right into that. Culturally, Peele nods to other films too, right? Social thrillers.
Definitely. He's talked about inspirations like Rosemary's Baby, The Paranoia, The Conspiracy Hidden in Plain Sight, and especially The Stepford Wives.
Ah, right. Where the women are replaced by docile robots.
Yeah. The parallel is pretty clear, the loss of identity, being controlled by an oppressive group. It's a similar structure, but given this specific racial dynamic.
And politically, the timing, just after Obama's presidency.
That's crucial. There was this narrative, especially among some white liberals, that America was maybe post-racial now.
Because a black man had been president.
Right. And Peele directly pushes back against that. He critiques that complacency, the idea some people apparently had that suddenly it was almost an advantage to be black.
Which ignores all the systemic issues.
Completely. Get Out is like a splash of cold water against that comfortable illusion. Institutionally, the film's success was kind of staggering.
For a debut horror film with an original script, yeah. Highest grossing debut based on an original screenplay ever, I think.
And second highest grossing for a black director at the time, made on a tiny budget, maybe $4.5 million.
And grossed over $250 million worldwide. Huge return.
Which is interesting because Peele apparently had concerns about how audiences would react.
Worried it would make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, worried white audiences might feel attacked, and maybe black audiences would feel awkward watching black suffering alongside white viewers, that kind of thing.
But obviously, it resonated hugely across the board.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, partly, like we said, it puts you so firmly in Chris's shoes. You experience his journey, the awkwardness, the microaggressions building up, the dawning horror.
You feel his anxiety.
You really do. And maybe, as one article suggested, it kind of deconstructs racism for white viewers in a way that's accessible because it's wrapped in this genre package, this thriller horror format.
Makes abstract ideas feel more visceral, more emotional.
Exactly. And that leads into the ideology, I suppose. One of the most powerful things is how it portrays Black resistance.
You mean Chris fighting back at the end?
Yeah, because historically in mainstream film, Black anger or violence is often, coded as dangerous or problematic.
There's pressure for Black characters to be restrained, not to seem angry.
Right. That strategic silence. But Chris endures so much throughout the film, tries so hard to navigate this impossible situation politely.
He shows incredible restraint.
So when he finally snaps, when he fights back with violence, it doesn't feel gratuitous. It feels earned, necessary.
Cathartic, almost. For the audience, too.
Definitely cathartic. It's positioned as vital for his survival, an empowering act against overwhelming oppression.
Let's quickly zoom back in on that garden party sequence, maybe around 42 minutes in, the start of it, with the guests arriving.
Yeah, those black cars pulling up, delivering these wealthy white people. Looking back, it feels almost like they're delivering predators or maybe even the buyers.
Yeah, it takes on that darker symbolic meaning. And Rose telling Chris to smile right then.
It seems innocent, maybe, but in context, it's about him performing for them, putting on the expected happy face, controlling his image.
And the comments start immediately, the touching, the remarks about his physique.
Totally dehumanizing. He's not a person to them. He's a specimen, a collection of stereotypes about Black men's strength, sexuality.
It's reducing him to a body, which is literally what they plan to do.
Precisely. And then his conversation with Logan Andre, that's the first real what the hell is going on moment for Chris, isn't it?
Yeah, the strange clothes, the robotic way he speaks, that sudden flash of recognition and panic.
It's terrifying because it's a glimpse of what happens. It's like seeing the end result of the process. That forced assimilation, the erasure of self, taken to its horrifying extreme. It's a stark warning.
So, wrapping this up, we've seen how Get Out uses, well, pretty much every tool in the filmmaker's kit.
Cinematography, sound, editing, performance, mise-en-scène.
To blend horror tropes with really sharp social commentary. It's looking at race, at liberalism, at history, all within this incredibly tense and effective genre film. A really significant piece of American cinema post-2005.
Absolutely. And it kind of leaves us, and you listening, with a question to chew on, maybe.
Okay.
Well, given how successful Get Out was and the kinds of conversations it started, how much has American cinema really changed in its engagement with race since 2017? Has it evolved or not?
And what role does genre, like horror, play in actually making space for those difficult, uncomfortable conversations?
That feels like something worth thinking about after the credits roll.